Let's look at facial features of enlarging and grid drawing. First thing we're going to look at is the mouth. So with the mouth, the area that I usually have students start with is the center. So for this picture, you are going to draw this center line, and then you're going to draw the other center line here. If you have an image like this one of Michael Jackson, you're just going to have that one line because the mouth is closed. All right, so I need to make sure I'm on the correct square. We've got 1, 2, 3, okay. When I look at this, I can go ahead and try to do this just from viewing it this way, or I can split this into a quarters so that it's a little easier to deal with. Okay, so I'm gonna get out my ruler. Looks like my square is 1/2 inch. So I'm gonna make a mark there and there. And then I'm going to make a mark there and there. So this is one of the most helpful basic things that you can do to help you with your grid drawing. Basically just breaking it down into smaller sections so that I can more easily figure it out. Okay, so once I have that section broken down, I'll also want to break down this section. So these ones are a little bit bigger. They are 1.5 inches. So I'm going to go to 3/4 inch. It's a little easier to be lazy and not use a ruler, but if you can get yourself to get out a ruler and use that, that's going to be a lot easier. Make sure that you're drawing really lightly when you divide the section again. I drew mine a little bit darker than I'd wanted. Okay, so now I'm going to go through and I'm going to kind of trace where that line is. I'm going to go down and then over. Okay, and then I'm gonna plot out my points for that. So if this is the center right here, the lip's going to meet that line a little bit to the right. So if here's the center, the lip will meet that line a little bit to the right. It's going to continue on that line, and then it's gonna bump up a little bit. Okay, so now I need to figure out where it meets the point right here. So if that is about the middle between those two, I have my lip is about 1/3 of the way up from there, and then the tooth is about 1/3 of the way up from there. So I'm going to find the middle, about 1/3 of the way up for the lip, and 1/3 of the way up for the tooth. Okay, so now I have this point plotted and I have this point plotted. So now I just have to copy that line right there. Okay, then now we need to figure out where the mouth ends over here. It's almost exactly halfway. And then now I'm going to copy the bump of that line. Okay, and then it goes into the other square about that far. Okay, I'm not going to worry about the teeth right now. I'm just going to look at the top lip, the bottom section of that. So I'm going to trace where it is. Okay, so I can use some of the points that I've already plotted right here. So I have that point right there is the middle, and it kind of just bumps up right from there. Doesn't go very far. If you're not sure about how high up to have that, you can plot out halfway and then 1/4 of the way and see how far it goes. Okay, so the lip comes down and then it touches that line about halfway. Okay, and then we're going to go off the side about halfway between this point and that point. And then it's going to meet there right after that. There's kind of a little bump that comes down. Okay. The teeth, again, we can deal with those later, but I just want to get a basic idea on where those are and put that in. Same way you do it with the rest, you're just going to plot it out. Okay, now we're going to look at the top and the bottom of the lip. Depending on how much lipstick or how much shadow, you may or may not see the top lip. Usually you're going to see a little bit more of the bottom lip. So we're going to kind of do the same thing. If this is halfway, that happens to be about where the lip crosses over that line. Make a mark about halfway. I'm going to look for the mouth about halfway down here. It's a little below that. Okay, and I'm going to figure out how far this goes down. So I'm going to check halfway, quarter of the way, and it's about right there. So if that's halfway, that's a quarter of the way, it's about how far it goes. Okay, and then this is interesting. Her mouth kind of splits into two sections here. We have this line, and then we have this line that goes out. Where they split is just below this right here. So I'm just going to connect that. And then this line is going to meet up with that other point I have on there. And the other part is going to go off. If you notice, I didn't really draw anything in here because you really can't see anything. If you look at just the value changes, there's not a huge difference. If there is a difference, it would be kind of under that line right there. Okay. So then to do the top lip, we're going to do the same thing. I think I need a little bit of help on that one, so I'm going to split this again. And I can actually use this line right here to know where my center is. Just extend it up. Okay, so I'm going to split this one. Extend this line up, make sure you do it lightly. Extend that one over. Okay, so now we're going to look at this again. If I go about halfway down, we're not to my top lip yet. If I go halfway down from there, the top lip is going to be right in the middle there. So the top lip is going to hit that point. If I look right here, it goes down to there. So I'm just going to make that line the best that I can. It's going to go a little bit past. Sometimes it's helpful when you do the lips to make that curve right there, and then you can come back in and draw that part in later. Okay, to figure out where that bump is, it starts at my halfway point right here. Okay, and then this just kind of fades off. Okay, So now I can go through and erase stuff that I don't need from there. Keep in mind though that you might need like these lines for the next section. I think I drew them a little too dark. Okay. So now that I have the mouth, I'm going to continue with the nose, continue with the eyes. If you want to break it up into sections, that's really helpful. Another thing that's very helpful is if you take your paper and you flip it upside down, and you flip this upside down so that you can see the lines without thinking too hard about the actual facial features that they're making. So when I flip this, I can just see, okay, I have this line flows down to here, this line flows up to here, and I'm not really thinking about the fact that that's an eye and that that should be a similar shape to that one. It kind of keeps you out of your head a little bit. Also, when you do the nose, people have a tendency to draw two lines. They draw one over here and then one over here. You may see a little bit of a shadow, but you're not going to see too much of a shadow on there. Okay, a tip when I start the nose, a lot of the times I like to find kind of the, what I call like the apple of the nose or the center. So if you go with your pencil really lightly, you can see kind of the circle or the oval, depending on the person's nose shape, that makes up the majority of the shape of their nose. I like to have that on there to transfer onto here so that it helps me build everything, the nostrils and the bridge around that. Okay, so if that's halfway, that's halfway. If that's halfway, that's halfway. Okay, so I know my nose is about here and about here. Now I need to see how far out it goes. Again, it's about halfway. That's halfway, that's a quarter of the way. Okay, this especially is important not to draw dark because you don't want that big circle there later on. Okay, so this one's a little bit tricky because it seems off because the mouth is way over here and the nose is way to the left, but that's just how it is. Looks like the nostril comes down to here. And let's see how far out it goes. So if that's halfway and that's halfway. The more stuff you get drawn on your paper, the easier it gets because you have more points of reference. The thing we need to look at is kind of drawing in some of those shadows too. So even if you don't see an actual line there, when you see the drastic color changes, it's important to put a line there. You shouldn't put lines somewhere where there is no big changes, but if you see major color changes, that works as a line. Really, when we look at these pictures, lines are essentially just color changes.